in my shoe. Nobody's looking that close at my foot. And if they're looking that close at my foot, maybe I need to pop them with my foot. Hi friends, and welcome to the very first episode of the Curious Skein podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I am a knitter and yarn dyer and cozy things enthusiast. And I'm so excited to be here today and record this podcast. I've tried it several times over the last couple of months, and I've had technical difficulties and life get in the way and all those sorts of things. You can find me at thecuriousskein.com. I'm on Instagram at thecuriousskein. I'm on Threads. I'm active on Threads most often, but I do post on Instagram and Facebook under The Curious Skein. As I've said, I've tried to record this multiple times. Either I've had issues with importing the video into the software. I've had, or one of the attempts I screwed up the audio completely. I recorded an entire 45-minute podcast and had zero audio at all. So I had plans to try and re-record this over the holidays, but that didn't work out. I was busy working on Vlogmas, which I failed spectacularly at in December. I had plans to get caught up on video editing over the Christmas holiday, but then my mother died the day after Christmas, and life got a little challenging after that. So we even had plans to go see the makeup version of A Christmas Carol. So if you watched any of my Vlogmas, you see that we made an attempt to go see A Christmas Carol on December 13th, but there was a storm that day. There was like 6 inches of snow that we got and ice and all kinds of stuff. We drove all the way down to the theater only to be told that they canceled the event about 30 minutes before we got there. Oh, so then we had to drive another hour and a half back. Would have taken maybe a 30-minute drive, but it took us an hour and a half there and an hour and a half home. So we had rescheduled that for the 26th, and that was the day my mother passed away. So I was able to get a gift certificate, and I'll pick another event to go see later this year, and hopefully I can redeem that here shortly and get my money back for it. And they've got a few things on the schedule that look interesting, so I'm hoping to be able to go see one of those. For the handful of people that watched my Vlogmas, I apologize for leaving you hanging with the Clue Advent that I did. I did a Clue Advent this year that I actually really enjoyed. I used to love the game, the Clue game, and I thought maybe it would be fun to do an Advent that wasn't completely involved with like food. I have a very limited diet. I'm for medical reasons, and I was trying to avoid something that involved food. So I did record a summary for both December 23rd, where I kind of went back through what all we had seen up to that point, and then the big reveal on the 24th. I don't know if I'll be able to get back to that and maybe post that in my Vlogmas, but for those of you that are interested, it was Solicitor Peacock in the ballroom with the ice chisel. So not leaving you hanging anymore. I like I said, I did enjoy the Advent calendar very much, and I think it's very family oriented. So if you've got kids who might be interested, I didn't see anything in the Advent calendar that I would have been uncomfortable with, a child, maybe about school age. I thought it would have been a very fun Advent to do with a family. So let's share a little bit about the Curious Skein. I have always loved color, storytelling, making things with my hands, and I got really intrigued by videos of people dyeing yarn this past year, and I wanted to give it a try, and so I did. I bought some supplies last summer and began playing with dyes, and so now I have a whole bunch of yarn here that if you want any, you can go out to my shop and see what I've got, and I hope to at the end, if I have some time, to go through a little bit of what's in the shop. I won't go too much into it, but I'll go through a little bit of what's in the shop. So let's talk first about what I'm wearing. Today I'm wearing my Alpine Bloom, designed by Caitlin Hunter. It is a rather cold day today, but I got really warm earlier. I made meatloaf for dinner, and I got a little overheated because the oven was on, and so I changed into a short sleeve sweater for recording the podcast. So I knit this in Knit Picks gloss fingering for the main color, and the undyed gloss fingering. So it's got a nice drape to it. It's very comfortable. And then the contrasting color was chroma fingering, so it's a color changing yarn that changes color on its own. And that, I believe the colorway was Candy Mountain. I did not create a Ravelry page, but I know I used Xiaogu needles, and I do remember that I got gauge, and I followed the pattern as written. I do notice that there's a little bit of tightness in the underarms. So if I knit it again, I might do a couple of rounds before I split for the sleeves, just to see if that is a little more comfortable under the arms. We'll give that a try and see if that works. I have no finished objects because the finished objects that I did have were gifted as a Christmas gift. In my Vlogmas, I was working on some the Christmas past socks for John, and I did get those finished before Christmas. John is my boyfriend, by the way. So let's talk about works in progress. So this is living in a bag by the Bay Bag Co. And let's see what I've got here. This is the Monday sweater. If I can get this open. All right. Thank you. I have been working on this for a few months. I did not write down when I started it. But I have split for the sleeves and almost finished the body. I'm on the ribbing of the body. I am finding that it's aggravating an old wrist injury. I had to have surgery in 2024 because I did too much knitting over the holidays, 2023. And so that still gets a little sore every now and then. I don't regret the surgery. The surgery was great. I was in a lot of pain before the surgery, and the surgery got rid of that pain. So it was totally worth it. But I haven't quite picked up as much speed as I had beforehand. I'm a little slower. I take a lot of breaks now, just naturally. So I've split for the I split for the sleeves and knit the body. I'm on the ribbing. I do about one round of ribbing, and then I move on to another project. And that way I'm continuing. I'm making progress, but I'm not stressing my wrist out with the 1x1 ribbing. This is knit in Knit Pick Swish Decay. Oh my gosh, it is so soft. And this little progress keeper, let's see if I can show it to you. It is a bee. It's a little bee progress keeper from Karen's Hobby Room on Etsy. I don't have all of the information for everything that I'm working on, but when I do have the information on the progress keepers or the stitch markers, I'll share it. So that is the Monday sweater. I'm getting close. I'm hoping that maybe by the end of this week or next week, I will be able to cast on a sleeve, get a sleeve going. At least one sleeve. I tend to like to do both sleeves at the same time. So I believe I have 2 needles for the sleeves, and I'll probably cast them both on, and then I'll work about 10 in one and 10 in another. Why not? So the next project I have are my Cozy Knitter Advent socks, and I forgot to look up the progress keepers, where these progress keepers came from. I just bought them. Huh. I'm not seeing where these progress keepers came from. Huh. Okay, so these are the Cozy Knitter Advent socks. You've seen these already. Everybody's worked on these all through December. I didn't get my yarn until December 1st. I ordered it late. She put up a last minute few skeins, and I managed to grab one of those like late in November. And I didn't get this until I think it was early December when I got it. So then I had to knit the cuffs for both socks, and I was behind to get even before December got started. I was way behind, and so I didn't anticipate getting these done for Christmas. But I did think maybe I'd get them done for New Year's. Well, my mom died. It didn't happen. I couldn't knit for a couple of weeks after my mom died. So I am very close. I have 30, 40, 50, 60. I have about 10 more rounds on this sock, and then I should be ready to start the toe, but I'll want to go in and cut in the heel first and then count how many rounds I have. For myself, for my formula for my socks, I like to knit a 68-inch cuff, and then I reduce down to 64 inches right after the cuff, because I like my sock to be a little bit longer, and I like the cuff to come up on more of the fatter part of the calf. So I knit my cuff a little bit wider with a few extra stitches, and then I don't know if you followed along with Vlogmas, but this is the sock that I spilt the wine on day 4. So if you want to go back and look at that, we were out with some friends, and I was trying to use a Hue Loco to filter some wine at the table, and the only cup I had was a collapsible cup in my purse, and it collapsed all down in front of me. So I debated. I was only a few rounds into the sock when this happened, and I thought, do I go back and reknit the cuff, or do I leave it? And I thought, you know what? It's part of its lore. We're going to leave it. We're going to leave it. And I bought these stitch markers. I know I bought them on, I believe I bought them on Etsy, but they're not showing in my purchases for some reason, so I can't tell you who I got them from. So the second sock is at the toe. I'm literally, this is where I need to start the toe. So again, I'm going to go back in before I do the toe. I'm going to cut in the heel, and I'm going to do that before I have to find another needle. So I'll have to figure something out. I've got one. I know where I have one. I have socks for my boyfriend John that I haven't. I've got one cast on, and I haven't cast on the second one, so I'll use that needle for the heel. There you go. It's an Addy squared, so it's fine. It'll be fine. So whip number 3 is not this one. Whip number 3 is in this bag. Okay, so that bag, I believe, is that was a Christmas sock project bag that was from Erica Schmerka Designs. This is another bag from Erica Schmerka Designs on Etsy. And this sock I am knitting out of my Sugar Plum Velvet colorway. And for the cuffs, heels, and toes, I am using a skein of Peyton's Croy Gray Marl. And I bought a package of 6 of these on Amazon to use for heels, toes, and cuffs for various things. And then I'm going to knit myself and John a pair of socks out of this at some point. But I decided I splurged at Christmas, and I bought myself some stitch dictionaries. This is one of them, and we'll talk about these more. But I bought myself some stitch dictionaries at Christmas time as a gift for myself. And I decided to use those and see if I couldn't come up with a design. And you can't really tell real well with this yarn, but there's a bit of a cable with a little bit of lace. I don't know if you can see that. I've knit the heel of this sock Normally I have both socks going at the same time, but I've knit the heel for the sock, and then I am well on my way on the foot. I think I have a couple more repeats to go. The repeats are about 28 stitches long. Again, my formula for my socks are I like to do 68 rounds for the cuff, 2x2 ribbing, and then I reduce on the first round after the cuff. I knit one, no matter what the pattern is, I knit one and I reduce by 4 stitches on that round, and then I go into the pattern, whatever the pattern is. I like to do 72 rounds for the leg, and for some reason it works out to be 72 rounds for the foot.
Look at that.
Before the toe.
Look at
and I prefer a German
tidiness of those stitches.
A German short
I've done
row
German
heel.
short row heels for years, and there's always a little bit of gap in my hair, which I never really minded all that much because they're in my shoe.
Nobody's looking that close at my foot, and if they're looking that close at my foot, maybe I need to pop them with my foot. But I tried to tighten this up when I did John's socks for his Christmas present. I really worked hard on tightening up those stitches, and so the trick is when you're making that double stitch, you've got to pull it really, really tight, and it feels wrong. It feels like it's way too tight, but you got to pull it really tight, and then on the second half of the heel, when you go back and pick up those double stitches, they are a little snug and they're a little tight to get into, but they just make such a tidy heel. And I know a lot of people really don't like German short row heels for that reason, because of that gaping that happens right there, but it just makes such a tidy heel. So anyway, I'm really proud of that. I prefer to knit a German short row heel. I don't like a heel flap and gusset. It's too time consuming and fiddly for me, and I feel like I can knit a German short row heel quickly. I am knitting these on, most of my socks are knit on 2.25 millimeter needles, and this happens to be Xiaogu needles, and I'm knitting these Magic Loop. So there's that. Normally I would have the second sock cast on, but because I'm doing my own design, I am not doing that this time. The next whip I want to talk about is the baby sweater. So as I said, I was in a knitting funk at the beginning of the year because my mother had passed away. She'd been sick. Just so y'all know, she had been sick. We had a complicated relationship. But it's always hard when a family member passes. Even when you're not thinking it's going to hit you hard, it can still hit you rather hard. So yeah. So I knit a couple of years ago, which was how I injured my wrist. I was knitting an Easy V sweater out of this Wool of the Andes worsted weight yarn and almond, and then I had several colors. These were some of the colors. I knit 2 of the sweaters. I knit one in gray and one in brown. And I believe this was one of the colors that I used in the brown, and this was one of the colors I used in the gray. And I'll try to wear them at some point or show them at some point. So I had just leftovers, just random leftovers. And I have not even dipped into a full ball of yarn yet from the leftovers. I'm just using like literally leftovers. Okay, so I am on one of the sleeves. I've knit the body, and I'm on a sleeve. And let's talk about this sweater. So John has a coworker who we have actually been out with her and a friend of hers. We went to a play back in early November, I think it was. And she is pregnant and due next month, I believe. And I was sitting on my couch looking at all my projects that I just couldn't bring myself to pick up and work on. I just couldn't do it. And I thought, I have got to get out of this funk because I have so many projects that I want to work on. I've got to figure out how to get out of this funk. And then, everybody always says, work on a baby sweater. Oh, I am going to have to I'm going to have to pull this out and restart this. because this does not look good. This sleeve does not look good. There's a problem with the sleeve in the back here. That is awful. I'm going to have to rip this out. Let me go ahead and do that. Take these needles out. Put them back in their little case so I don't lose them. And then I'll work on those. Try to get that back on. I'll try to get that going again. So anyway, so I was working on, I thought, wait, I've got all these sweater leftovers. Why don't I try to knit a flax and see what I can do with that? See if I can knit a flax sweater. So I cast on, dug through my basket of worsted leftovers and found all these little bits and pieces. And I cast on this little sweater. Have to tell you the funny story. So I thought this would be really cute as a pretty little color, and I've got a whole basket full in my other room that I've been going through as I've been knitting this sweater. So I thought, gosh, I've got these stitch dictionaries. Why don't I find a cute little flower motif and just do like a little row of flowers? So I found a little flower motif and did the math and figured I've got enough stitches to do some of that flower. The only problem was, because it's such a tiny sweater, there was going to be a flower here and a flower here. So I said, no, we're not going to do that. And I just put a couple stripes in instead. I may go back in and maybe do some embroidery of a little flower, something or other right in the middle. We'll see. First, I've got to get the sleeves done, and I want to get this done by this coming weekend because I've got to get this washed soon and blocked so we can get it. I can get it to John this weekend so he can give it to her for her shower at work. And he said it's not that big of a deal. He's already put in money for a gift that I guess some people that work with her are putting some money together for a gift. So he's not that terribly worried about it. That project bag, sorry. This is, I believe, the project bag. Fancy Boy Designs on Etsy. And I really like this one. I love this little handle. I think this is a nice bag. And I was really impressed when I ordered it. It came so quickly. But I'm in Ohio and he's in Kentucky. So that probably is why. But it's got like this cute little bee. I just thought it was really cute. And, you know, you can never have too many project bags, right? So, let's see. Whip number 5. And I've got more whips than this. These are the ones I'm rotating through right now. So, I decided I had some of my hand-dyed yarn that I wanted to... Let me see if I can find a ball that is not attached to something else. Here we go. So this is my Frosted Path color. And let's see. This is it in a hank. Frosted Path. This is on my Voyager base, which is a 25 or 75-25 merino nylon base. And the socks that I showed you are also that same base, the 75-25. So I thought I wanted a long sleeve sweater, but a thin one because I'm in my 50s and perimenopause and hot flashes. So I thought a thin sweater might be more wearable throughout the year, you know, throughout most of the winter. The worsted weight Easy V's are great when the weather is really, really cold, but they can get a little too hot right now. So I thought I would set some of this yarn aside, this Frosted Path. Oh, come on. And now they're all tangled up. Okay, here we go. This Frosted Path. It's a light blue variegated, bit of a variegated tonal yarn. It's tonal, but there's a little bit of variation to it. So I thought about this Xyra top. And these sleeves, I got these sleeves on Amazon. There's like a pack, I got a pack of like 25 of them. I don't remember what I searched for to get them. I'd have to look in my orders and see what they're called. But I thought about the long sleeve version. And let me pull out what I have knitted so far, which is on the floor. Let me get organized. And so I've done the first chart and I'm working on the second chart. Let me get a little closer. I'm working on the second chart a little bit. I'm a couple rows into the second chart. And this one's going to take a while. It's not going to be done very, oh wait. Nope, this is the way. This is the way. So it's got that scalloped edge that's going to be along the neckline. And I'm really excited about that. I do recommend that you put in little stitch markers between your lace repeats. Or your texture repeats when you have like a chart that you're working on, because it's so much easier when you get to the next stitch marker. You know what that last stitch or two is supposed to be, and if it doesn't match up, then you're like, wait a minute, I did something wrong, and you can go back through that little section, and you're not going back an entire row to figure that out. And I'm knitting these on Xiaogu needles, the recommended needle size. I did get gauge. I tend to get gauge. I don't understand it. I know a lot of people don't, but I tend to get gauge. This is living in this bag. I wanted a bag that had like a fall design on it, and I found a tote on Etsy by Johnma, I think, Johonma on Etsy, and you can get these totes customized. I just picked something fall-ish because I wanted a fall-ish bag for a sweater. So that's what I've been doing. I may go back and order another one with my logo on it at some point. We'll see. And then last but not least, because I do have a couple of blankets that I started and I haven't actually worked on in a while, is this well, I got it tangled up a little bit, but this is the sweater I started for John. John wanted a sweater. He asked me for a sweater. He's got his heart set on a fisherman sweater, or a gansey as they're known, and so I ordered some undyed yarn for some undyed sport weight yarn for the sweater he picked out. He wanted white, and then I said, here's what it is undyed. Do you want me to dye it a different color than this? And he said, no, I want you to just use that. And I said, okay. So I cast it on. That's 356 stitches on the needles. So I do not anticipate finishing it anytime soon. It's going to take me probably a year to finish it. But let me show you the one he picked. He picked Stornoway, which is this one. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? I think you can see that. So he wanted that one, but in a white. There's a lot of cables. A lot of cables. It's going to be a little bit intense. So I warned him. I said it's probably going to take about a year. He said that's fine. He can wait. So I do a row every so often. It takes about an hour to do a row. So I do a row and then I set it aside and I work on something else. And that way I don't get burned out. I know there are people out there that have to work on one project at a time. They cannot do multiple projects, but I have to have multiple projects or I will lose my mind. And before anyone comments on the boyfriend sweater curse, I don't buy into it. If he's going to break up with you over a sweater or because you knit him a sweater, there were problems in the relationship already. And it was probably a good thing that he ended the relationship. Because I believe relationships end when they're meant to end. And he asked for the sweater. He is aware of how long it will take me to knit it. We've been together for 5 years as of last month. And we both forgot. Oops. So I'm not concerned. If the relationship ends, then it was meant to end, and the sweater had little to do with it. It's just often I think some guys get a little freaked out by the level of commitment that a sweater shows, and that might be why they end the relationship. But I'm not terribly worried about it. I'm in my 50s. If the relationship isn't meant to end, it'll end. And it's probably a good thing that it ends because that gives you the opportunity to find somebody else. But I don't think it's going to end. Okay, so right now my priority is finishing the baby sweater before the baby shower at John's office. Not this coming week, but next week. So I want to get that done and then maybe to try to get the sleeves going on the Monday sweater. John did ask me these are a pair of socks that he thinks he's had them for like 30 years, he said. These are wool socks that he bought. He thinks maybe at TJ Maxx or Marshall's or someplace like that. He wears them when he goes hiking, and this one you can really see it on. They're very threadbare. So he brought them over and asked me to take a look to see if there's anything I can do with them. So I felt them, and then I thought, gosh, that really feels a lot like that Peyton's Croy I'm working with. So I pulled the Peyton's Croy out, and I kind of had one in one hand and one in the other, and I thought, yeah, that really feels a lot like the Peyton's Croy. So I went online, and I ordered some Peyton's Croy in a brown. It won't match. He doesn't care. But I think what I'm going to do, based on where the wear pattern is, because I've done some research, I'll have to get rid of these little nubs, but I think I'm going to have to do Swiss darning. And I'll probably have to start here and work my way down towards the heel. The heel actually feels not terribly threadbare. It's just the back of the heel. So we'll see what happens. This one is the worst. It's got an actual spot that's pretty threadbare on it. Hold on. Alexa, turn on office.
Okay.
Sorry. That is my clue that it's getting a little late and I need to actually wrap this up. I don't know when I'll get this edited. It'll be later this week before I can get it edited. But anyway, so this yarn, the Peyton's Croy that I ordered to do this, is coming later this week. And then I also ordered a kit that includes a speed weave because I know at some point his socks, he's probably going to wear through the heels of his socks. I've been trying to do contrasting heels, toes, and cuffs for his socks so that if he does wear through a heel, I can do an afterthought heel. I can take out the heel and do an afterthought heel even with a new color, just something that kind of coordinates. That would work. What I am looking to cast on, in here I've got some yarn for a vanilla sock for John. Once I get the Advent socks done, and I like to, I've already got one cuff on, but it's not really a whip because I'm not really spending any time on it right now. I've got to get some other projects done. But I like to break my ball of yarn into 2 balls, and I use a little scale. Somewhere I've got a little scale. Don't know where I put it. I think it might be in one of my drawers or whatever. But I found a scale on Amazon for like $7. And you weigh your yarn before you wind it up. You wind it up into a cake, and then you pull from the outside string. You take the outside string and you put that back on the ball winder, and you wind up a new cake, and you just weigh the original cake every so often. And when they're approximately half, you break the yarn and you get 2 halves. And then I have 2 needles, and my general plan is to cast on both at the same time. But again, I'm going to need this one to do the heels on those Christmas socks, those Advent socks. So I'm going to go ahead and switch that over. This yarn is an old sock set that I've had for, gosh, I don't know how many years. It's a backyard kitchen. It's a Hue Loco. The Backyard Chicken Collection. Not kitchen, chicken. It's one of the Hue Loco Backyard Chicken Collections. It is the Partridge Silky Bantam is what she's got marked on here. The Partridge Silky Bantam. You can't even see that because I have my hands in the way. How about that one? It's a 75-25 superwash merino nylon. I split it into 2 cakes here so that I can knit both. I've got one cast on. I'm almost done with the cuff. Sorry. I like to use nylons as as yarn socks. I use knee highs as yarn socks. They're cheap. They're easy to find. Everybody's got an old pair of pantyhose that's got a run in them. You can cut a piece out of it and use that, or you can buy a box of knee highs and just use that. So I've got, most of my bags have those in them. So that is kind of sort of a whip, kind of sort of not. It's been on the back burner for a while. So once I get the Advent socks done, I will cast these on because I like to have a vanilla sock on the go so that when we go out to meet friends or we go out to dinner, I've got something I can grab real quick and take with me to have a project that I don't have to think about. I can just knit while we're out. So right now my Advent socks are filling that bill, but they're not going to fill that bill. They really don't anymore because now I'm at the point where I've got to do the heel and I have to do the toe. So there's that. And then the next thing that I'm excited that I want to cast on. So it's been bitterly cold. We had that storm that came through. We got over a foot of snow a couple weeks ago. We still have quite a bit of snow sitting out there. Some of it has evaporated or melted off. Little bits of it have melted off ever since then, but we still have a good 8 to 10 inches out there, I want to say. We're due to get some warmer weather this week, which will be nice. But gosh, I was walking into the office last week and I was like, man, my legs are cold. I want some leg warmers. So I dug through, since I had my worsted weight yarn out working on that baby sweater, and I found 4 balls of this Wool of the Andes Knit Picks yarn. Worsted weight Hayes Heather. And I've got 4 balls of it. So I think that should be enough, more than enough, to do leg warmers that actually come up over my knees. Now, I'm not a very tall person, so 2 balls might be enough. But I thought since I had 4 of those that I would start with that and see how much yarn I need and go from there. Let's see what I'm watching and reading. So I like to watch mysteries on streaming networks. There's a few series that I like to watch on Britbox and Acorn. I like Father Brown on Britbox. One episode has dropped that's available to me. There's some more episodes that if I upgraded my plan I could get access to. So I'm just waiting until a few more of those episodes drop so I can go in and watch those. I'm really excited to see Mrs. McCarthy back. I'm really excited. Oh, probably wondering, I burnt my arm. Getting the meatloaf out of the oven. I bumped my arm on the inside of the oven wall. All right, I'll have to look for some burn gel, put that on there. It's fine. It doesn't really hurt. It'll probably leave a little bit of a mark though. So I started wearing last December, I think it was. I bought the Visible band to try the Visible app and see if it would help me manage my, not so much my symptoms of my chronic illness. I have a mast cell disease, and so my symptoms are all over the place every day. But I end up with a lot of fatigue, and I find it difficult to pace myself throughout the day. I end up either doing too much, and then I'm completely burned out and I can't get anything done the rest of the day. I have trouble getting all the important things done. I end up doing too much of one thing, and then there's not enough of me to go around to do anything else. And there have been days where I walk into the office and I've used 4 of my 12 pace points for the day just walking into the office. So I want to do more things like dyeing yarn and keeping up with the housework and keeping the house organized, but it's been a challenge to try and manage my energy levels in such a way that I can actually do all the things that I want to do. And so I've been paying attention to how my stability score is, how I'm pacing myself and things like that. And I think I'm starting to get into, it's now been a good 2 months that I've been doing it, and I think I'm starting to get into a rhythm with it where I can tell if today's going to be a day where I have nothing in my bank, versus some days I feel pretty good and I feel like I have a little extra in my bank and I can do a little bit more that day. So I think it's really been helping me. If that's something you've been looking into or you've been seeing the ads for it and been wondering about it, this is the one that you wear on your wrist. I usually wear it up a little higher on my wrist. I was wearing it on my left arm above my wrist, but with my mast cell disease, I run the risk of having a reaction to things. And it's not all the time. Sometimes I'll just be reactive that day, and I was reacting. It created a little bit of a reaction on my wrist a couple days ago. So I moved it to my right wrist, my right arm, to see how it try and let this one heal, let this one calm down. I have the same problem with my Apple Watch. Every once in a while, I'll get some bumps underneath it, and I have to take it off for a day or two, or wear it really loosely. There's also this this body glide stuff that you can put on your wrist before you put the watch on, and it helps a little bit, provide a little bit of a protective layer, so your skin doesn't get irritated. So I can try that as well. But this works really well. One of the things that I like about it is the battery lasts for several days. I take it off when I take a shower. I take it off to charge. It takes maybe 30 minutes to charge at the most. I can take it off, put it on the charger, go get a bath, and it's done by the time I'm done with my bath and getting ready for bed. So I really do like the Visible app. I think maybe when I, later this year, when I have a little extra money, I'll go ahead and pay for the annual subscription. So enough about the Visible app. Let's talk about what I am watching and reading. I talked about Father Brown on Britbox. I like My Life is Murder. That's on Acorn. What else is on Britbox? I can't remember. Oh, the Death in Paradise, I think, is on Britbox, and then there's some spin-off series of that one. So Death in Paradise has a number of seasons. If that's not something you've watched yet, it's got a number of seasons. It takes place on a little island in the Caribbean. John always makes fun of it because the episode will start off, somebody will get murdered, and he goes, cue the happy music, and then the happy theme song comes on, and he's like, there it is. He makes fun of it. He makes fun of me watching all the murder shows, and anyway, he says I watch a lot of murdery shows. So anyway, so there's Beyond Then there's Beyond Paradise, which one of the detectives left the island and went back to England to be closer to his girlfriend. And so there's now a series in England based on him, which is a lot of fun. Humphrey and Martha. I'm kind of glad because they were such a cute couple in the original series, and she was only there on vacation, and I was just like, oh, but he deserves to have a little happiness. So when he followed her to England, and then they started a series based on their characters back in England, I was very happy to see that. So that's been fun to watch. There's a couple of other shows I like. My Life is Murder is on Acorn, which takes place in New Zealand. The first episode, or the first season took place, I think the first season took place in Australia, and then they moved it to New Zealand. And I'm liking that one as well. It stars Lucy Lawless as the main character, and she's a retired police detective, and she's brought in to look at unusual cases or cold cases, and she just has a knack for solving them. So, and then she's got someone she works with who is an analyst who's got like computer skills, and she can find almost anything on the internet, and so they work well together. So it's really interesting. And in the first season, she is still very angry at the death of her husband. She's a widow, and she's grieving, and she's still very angry about the death of her husband, and she's working through all of that grief. And so seeing her evolve as the series progresses is kind of nice too. To see her kind of come back into her own again is kind of nice. Especially since she's a little older. And I guess I can identify with that since I'm 53. I'm in that age bracket as well. So let's see. What am I currently listening to? So I started keeping this year what I came across it on the internet. They call it a commonplace book. And commonplace books were very common hundreds of years ago. It was very common for people like Ben Franklin. Even average people kept a commonplace book, and it was a place for them to write notes of things down that they read, quotes from books that they read that they wanted to keep track of, lists of things and whatnot. And there doesn't have to be any specific order in these things. You just write down what you want to keep track of, and then at the end you can fill out an index so that you can find things based on what's in the book. But I thought it would be really interesting. There's several books I've listened to in recent years that I thought, man, I wish I had a place to write down some of these gems from this book. There's just so many, especially in this one book I'm reading right now. But let's talk about what I read or listened to in January. I like to listen to a lot of audiobooks because you can knit while you're doing it. You can clean the house while you're doing it. I hate chores, but if I'm listening to an audiobook, it's a little easier to get through it. So I listened to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I finished 6 books in January. They were all audiobooks. Most of them were fiction. One of them was nonfiction. So I finished Murder on a Frosty Night by Verity Bright. The Vanishing at Hallwood Hall by Helena Marchmont. Murder Most British by Helena Dixon. The Road to Station X by Sarah Baring. Murder by Firelight by Merryn Allingham. And The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford. Those were all audiobooks. And The Pursuit of Love I finished on January 30th. So, I listened to quite a bit. The Road to Station X was the nonfiction book by Sarah Baring, and I wrote a little note down about that book that I found interesting. A couple of things I found very interesting about the book. So she was born in 1920, And at age 17, her mother sent her to finishing school in Germany. And she tells about her experience being in Germany right before the war broke out and all the anti-Semitism that was going on during that time. And I just found her telling of these experiences very witty, very funny. It was very enjoyable to listen to. So if you like anything from World War II history, I love World War II history. I read a lot of books and listen to a lot of World War II history. Let's talk about the choice. Dr. Edith Eva Eger was a Holocaust survivor, and she was a young teenager when she went to the camps with her older sister Magda. They had another sister, Clara, that was a violin virtuoso and was hidden by one of her teachers throughout the Holocaust, throughout the war. And that's how she survived the war. Their parents did not survive. Their parents were sent to the gas chambers the day they arrived. Dr. Eger, when you understand that she came to the U.S., now she was a ballerina and a gymnast before the war, and she was so injured and damaged during the Holocaust by the lack of food and the way they were treated that she was never able to return to any of that again. She still dances. There's videos of her on the internet of her dancing. She's like in her 90s. She's like 95, 96. I don't know. She's up there in age. She came to the U.S. with her husband and one of their children, and she didn't understand a bit of English. She didn't know a bit of English, and she had to teach herself English. And it wasn't until she was in her late 30s and 40s that she went back to school and got a college degree so that she could become a teacher. Then she went back and got a master's degree so she could become a school counselor. And then she went back and got her PhD so she could become a psychologist. And she specialized in working with patients with PTSD. It's a unique book as someone who has PTSD herself and has had to work through that, and then to have the clinical knowledge to be able to apply that to the retelling of her history is amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. There are so many gems in this book that I'm listening to that's why I decided to keep a commonplace book this year and see how that goes. So I only write books that I've actually finished down in the back. There's another section. I've been taking some courses for work, for some education at work. So I'll write some of those down when I complete some of those courses and keep track of that. But there is a number of gems. And so when you understand that English is not this woman's first language, she not only had to learn English, she had to learn it well enough that she could get multiple degrees, and then to hear how well she writes is just amazing. So one of the quotes in the very first chapter that I wrote down is, "Maybe every life is a study of the things we don't have but wish we did, and the things we have but wish we didn't. It took me many decades to discover that I could come at my life with a different question. Not why did I live, but what is mine to do with the life I've been given?" And then there's another one I want to read. So on the first day, they're in the camp, and as everyone knows, they get stripped. They had their head shaved. And Magda was very beautiful and very voluptuous. She was very well known for her beauty. And she can tell that Magda is afraid and ashamed, and she asks Edith how she looks. And this is what Edith says: "I must find an impossible answer, a truth that doesn't wound. I gaze into the fierce blue of her eyes and think that even for her to ask the question, 'How do I look?' is the bravest thing I've ever heard. There aren't mirrors here. She is asking me to help her find and face herself. And so I tell her the one true thing that's mine to say. Your eyes, I tell my sister. They are so beautiful. I never noticed them when they were covered up by all that hair. It's the first time I see that we have a choice. To pay attention to what we've lost or pay attention to what we still have. That is Dr. Eger. She's amazing. And that book is amazing. The book is called The Choice. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. She's written another book called, I believe, The Gift, which is a bit of a summary of the second half of The Choice. So the first half of The Choice is her life history. And then the second half is what she learned as a psychologist and how she applied both her own experiences and her clinical expertise to helping people with PTSD. So I think it's an amazing book. I highly recommend it. If you haven't read it, go out and read it. It's a wonderful book. So this is now over an hour long. So hopefully there's enough in here I can edit this down a little bit. But I had a lot to go through, and we didn't even get through some of the yarn. So maybe the next podcast I do, we'll go through all of the yarn that's sitting behind me. I'll try to get all that organized. I won't have the sweater the next time, the baby sweater. That will be gifted. I'll try to take a picture of it. That will be gifted. But hopefully I've made some progress on some of the other stuff, and I can talk about some of that and see where I'm at with some of that. And then we'll talk about what's in the shop the next time. Again, thank you so much for joining me for this first episode of the Curious Game podcast. And I am so thrilled that I'm finally able to share this space with you. I can't wait to bring you more yarn dyeing, more knitting projects, more cozy adventures. Don't forget to check out the shop online at thecuriousgain.com and follow along on social media at The Curious Gain. I am The Curious Gain on Instagram, Facebook, Threads. I think I grabbed the TikTok. I might have grabbed the Twitter. I'm not really doing anything on TikTok or Twitter right now. I'm mostly on Threads. I find Threads to be a very enjoyable space at the moment. It's so cool to hop on there and somebody will talk about some milestone that they've hit in their life. You know, they're sober 7 days, or they just finished their degree, or they just did a hard thing or something, and to watch all these strangers cheering that person on is just such a good feeling. So I'm on Threads a lot more than anything else. Anyway, I hope you will give me a comment down below if you've hung into the end. Give me a comment down below and comment on what you're knitting on or what you're hoping to cast on in the near future. Is there a particular pattern that you're looking into casting on? Do you want leg warmers? They're coming back. I'm into it. I'm going to knit me some leg warmers. Yeah. And with all my stitch dictionaries that I bought, I didn't even go through any of the books that I bought. That'll be next time. So maybe the next episode, if I don't have a whole lot of knitting to show, I'll talk about the books that I bought, and some of them I was gifted, and then we'll go through all the yarn behind me. So thank you so much. Again, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope you stay warm.